Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of The Fig Life. I'm your host, Kenny, and today we are going to learn about prototypes. How do we get them? How much do they cost? Are there any value? And to help us with that, I'm glad to introduce you guys to figheel. What's going on, buddy?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How's everything?
It's great, man. Living the fig life.
There you definitely. So I wanted to talk to you today about prototypes. I
Yeah.
know you have a couple of them. Matt Cardona has a couple of them. I know a couple of buddies of mine
Yeah.
that have them too that they collect. So can you just run down a little bit of like what is a prototype?
So a prototype, it could be various amounts of things. Okay. There's things called test shots, which basically is before a figure gets produced, they kind of produce it, like put different parts together. Like that's pretty much what Mattel does. They'll take pre-existing parts, put them on new tooled parts just to kind of see like this is what it looks like. And often there'll be different colors. A prototypes back in the day were often hand sculpted or made of resin. It's all various. It all changes based on what the line is, but it's really something that's pre-production. Before it was mass produced, there's very limited amounts of this sample. And to be honest with you, a lot of prototypes and pre-production pieces, when you really hold them in your hands and you look at them, they have more detail than the actual finished product. And that's for all different types of reasons. But older prototypes, like let's talk about LJN, for instance. Okay, like an LJN prototype, a resin prototype, the amount of detail is incredible. They're like beautiful. They'll be resin. All right, they're slightly very minute changes in height based on the actual produced versions. The painting will be almost perfect, like hand painted, but you'll see more detail. And for LJNs and things like Jax BCAs or Hasbro's, the reason that they don't have the amount of detail that a prototype does is because over time, these molds that they use to produce these figures, they almost get like worn out. You know what I mean? From
Mhm.
being used over and over and over again. That's why sometimes with like an LJN, you could collect 30 different Hulk Hogan's and you'll see slight changes in the details of the actual mold. It's because it all depends on, how far along in the mold process it was. Someone like LJN, they have, after a certain amount of uses, they would get a new mold because it would just change the overall look of the figure. But yeah, pre-production pieces, for a long time, nobody really cared about them. And then some pieces that we just didn't even know existed started popping up. Like Matt Cardona got a bunch of them, and it just became this like crazy, very small community. But this small community of people that are willing to pay big money for figures and really go deep into hunting. It goes far beyond um, going to a store. Like there is some covert operations that people put into finding prototypes, and I always compare it to like we have the internet. We have the basic internet that everybody uses, but then there's like the dark web, and I compare people who are prototype collectors. They're like the dark web of collecting because they have to go deep in, and and in a lot of research, a lot of connections to be made, a lot of talking and moving around to people. But once you're in there, people start to know who you are and approach you for different things. Like I never used to know how to find prototypes, stuff like that. But
How
now,
did you get started?
honestly, doing the Unreleased Wrestling Figs
Uh-huh.
Instagram, and then now, like people just reach out to me all the time and like about like, hey, do you want this? Do you know anything about this? And like I kind of just opened myself up to that
Hmm.
world. Before that, I didn't know, but now I've made so many connections with people in that world that like if I'm looking for something, I know who to go to. You know what I mean?
You're right.
But I mean, I'm not a huge, believe it or not, prototype collector.
Hmm.
There's a couple. I own like I don't know, maybe 10 different pieces, 15 different pieces. But it's not something that I'm like, oh, I need to have this, and this. There's probably only one pre-production piece that um, I absolutely need. And it's during the Jax BCA era, they did bone crunching buddies. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so they were their version of wrestling buddies, but they really didn't look anything like wrestling buddies. And they had like these like almost like connects limbs, so they would make like a cracking noise. Well, before they produced them, they were actually just going to do plush buddies. And there's only one picture I've ever seen of these, and it was at a toy fair, and it's Headbangers Wrestling Buddies, and they have like the skirts, and they're just so cool. And it's the
Mhm.
only time I've ever seen them. I saw that picture as a kid. I still have it, and I've posted it a couple times. And I hope that one day I can just dig them up somehow, some way. That would be my ultimate prototype pre-production piece.
Wow. So what are some of the like the prototypes that you actually have now?
So I have two WWE Mattel Create a Superstar pieces. One is a completely unproduced Stardust, Cody Rhodes
Mhm.
Stardust figure. And I just thought it was cool because I always liked Cody, and he really doesn't have many unreleased pieces. And somebody offered these to me for an insanely cheap price. And I was like, sure. I mean, yeah, if you're just getting rid of them, I'll take them. So I have that, and I have gold dusts, and they're these test shots. So pretty much every limb is a different color, but the Cody has all unproduced tooled pieces on the body, as far as like the chest, the arms, the feet. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I have a I have the resin hand painted prototype Rocky Maivia bone crunching action figure, and he's different because he was produced and advertised with having like the fighting hands,
Mhm.
whereas when it came out they elongated his arms for playability. But yeah, I love that figure. It's probably one of my favorite. I got that from Mark Bushy. I have some uh, test shot like random Mattel accessories that I thought were cool, like a Road Dog shirt. I have a classic Superstars Jake Roberts that was unproduced, and the cool thing about classic Superstars pre-production prototype pieces, for a long time, people would call them fakes or knockoffs, but the way that Jax would do like classic Superstars and Ruthless Aggression style figures back in the day, because they when you really think about it, they used a lot of the same parts for every figure. Like it felt like every figure had the same arms, right? Like
Mhm.
there was only, I think, 4 or 5 different torsos. So they had all of the tooled parts that they were planning and willing to use. So pretty much all they would do, they would take pre-existing parts, okay? They would mold a head, put it on, or use a pre-existing head, hand paint it, and then they would literally print out pieces of paper and glue it onto the figure.
Oh
Like
wow.
like I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a Ron Simmons figure, and it says damn right on the
Yeah.
chest. Well, he was produced saying Farouk, because you can't put damn on a figure. There's a little bit of,
Right.
you know, but the damn prototype, it's literally just a printed out piece of paper that they glued onto his chest. And that's how they did a lot of prototypes at the time. And it's very interesting because when you look at them from afar, it doesn't look like it's just paper pasted
Mhm.
on, but that's what it is.
And when you get closer enough, that's when you can see
Yeah.
more of the detail.
And
So like,
it's scary for some people because that's so easy to fake. It's so
mhm.
easy to fake. So if you don't know what has a prototype that way, it
Mhm.
could be a scary world to get into. So it's important to know who you're buying from.
Right.
And that's one thing that people I don't think do when they're buying prototypes. Like you got to ask, you know, where did you get this? Who do you know? And you sometimes you have to do research where it's like you contact that person and say, hey, I was going to be purchase this piece. Like, I just wanted to
Mhm.
confirm, is this something that you actually had, that you produced? Like, did you sell it to this? Because again, some of these things are easy to do bootlegs on if you
Right.
don't know, if you're not educated in it.
Yeah, because that's like one of the questions that I had was like, how do you know that like that this prototype is real? Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially you said that you have to like go to like a dark web type of thing, and so or you really had to know. So I'm assuming that a lot of people go to you,
Yeah.
and ask these questions as far as like, hey, have you ever seen this before? Like, what does the prototype look like?
Yeah, so it's tough. Like sometimes it's I know right away. Sometimes I have to do a little bit of research, and sometimes I have to ask people. So recently I helped Matt Cardona get an LJN prototype, and it was the whole story is absolutely bizarre, but we were really unsure. We were like this is like part of this transaction seems really shady, dude. Like, and we were like back and forth, like stress and like, I don't like, what if it doesn't come? Like, what if this guy just takes the money and run? Like he doesn't want you to send friends and family. Like, it was like a very kind of like, it wasn't even my money. It was his. And it was like very stressful because I was like, I'm not vouching for this guy who's selling it, but I'm just telling you, I found this like, and Matt got it. And after examining it, we were like, yeah, that's real. Like we like comparing it to the Hulk Hogan that he had, it was real. But like sometimes you take the gamble on those things. And that's the scary part, is that like these action figures, these prototypes, it's not like a Hasbro figure where I can go on eBay and I can see what they sell for, see what they're worth. When you have one of these pieces, there is no market. You basically can create a price. And that's the scariest part about this. And now there's some heavy hitters getting into the prototype game, and people know about it. So they're just creating these astronomical prices for these pieces,
Right.
and that they're creating this market. But as far as like figuring out something's real, I have like thousands and thousands of pictures from toy shows and stuff like that. And if it's something that I know came from a Comic-Con or toy fair, I immediately like go in. I have like a folder filled with stuff, and I go in and I compare the slightest things. Like, I think a lot of people look at it from like, all right, the whole package. Like, I try to find like very, very, very small details on something and zoom in, and I compare things that way. Sometimes people will send me stuff that I've never even seen before. And there's been a couple where I've tried to figure out who like the sculptor was or something, and I try and contact them. Sometimes they don't answer, sometimes they do. It's a complicated process. There's been a couple times where there was things that I was interested in buying, but I was like, I just can't take this gamble because I can't get a true answer.
Right.
And that's the thing about this field, is that like, there's going to be times where it's like you have to be either willing to gamble or willing to walk away. And when you walk away, somebody else is probably going to get it, but there's a lot of
So
risk.
like, right. So like with the newer Mattel elites,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like what goes into like, can you find those prototypes, or are they just like
The thing,
hidden away somewhere because they're still using them for like other, like other talent?
yeah, the thing about Mattel Elite prototypes, I don't. If you follow the page, you'll notice I don't really post too many Mattel ones, and the reason behind that is like Steve and Bill really have kind of reached out and told me like, we're not really like, don't post that, don't like, because Mattel produces so much stuff. We all know that there's so many
Right.
different elites and lines and stuff like that. If you think about how much they produce, there's a lot of stuff they don't produce. And there's a lot of like, even like pieces and like accessories. So these things start to go into production and then they're canned for monetary reasons. And a lot of these things exist overseas in China. And these factories, these people who may know that there's a market for these things, will produce them on their own. And that becomes like a very hazy area. It's a gray area because it's like, all right, well, Mattel didn't technically produce this. This is something produced by somebody in a factory who basically just had the blueprints for it. You know what I mean? A lot of Mattel stuff exists on the secondary market in China, and like there's been a couple things sent to me, and I'll talk to like Steve, and he'll be like he was like, part of that is right, but part of that's not. That's not how we were planning to do it. That's definitely somebody kind of took half of what we did and then created their own. There's a lot of that out there. Mattel is probably the most complicated, if you ask me, because it's so modern and we're in the internet age, and there's so much information, and China, like they have access to these factories and they produce these things, and Mattel is definitely the most complicated, to be honest with you, like as far as stuff.
Yeah, because I've seen some like a lot of just like custom makers like take these different Mattel, figures and make a whole new person. And then I just look at them and I'm like, wow, like how the hell did you do that? And then it looks like better. Like I'd rather get that than what say like Mattel came up with.
Yep.
And I'm like, and then they'll sell it for like a ridiculous price. So like when it comes to like the prototypes and like the test shots, some of the numbers that people will throw at me as far as like how much they paid for something is just like, it's crazy. I have a friend of mine, he just showed me some test shots of some AEW figures that he got.
Yeah.
And I was just like, how much did you pay? And he was just like, it cost him a bit.
Yeah.
I think it was
And
like a close to the thousands for him. And I was just like, yeah, like
yeah,
I can't see myself paying for something like that.
I actually know what you're talking about. And that's the thing. Like there's this, the thing about worth and value, it can be a gray area as well. It's like, for instance, the AEW stuff, like the chases and rares. Like I have a lot of figures. I don't own any of the chase or rare figures because I've never found one in stores. I'm not willing to pay $500 to $1,000 for a figure that is technically new on the market. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not willing to do that. But that doesn't mean it's not worth it. It's not worth
Mm-hmm.
it to me. But there are people that are paying $1,000+ for these things. There's people that are dropping this money. And so I was just having a conversation with somebody like in our community, there's a lot of hate on quote unquote scalpers, but scalpers only make what people are willing to pay. And that's the problem. Like the reason that we have scalpers is because there's people that are feeding that market.
Yep. Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like that's why I don't really hate on scalpers, because am I willing to pay those prices? I'm not willing to pay those prices, but I acknowledge that people are, like one of the craziest things to me, like, cause you're obviously like a modern collector, like the Legends Ultimate Warrior, the week that it dropped in stores, people were paying $125 for this warrior that's going to be virtually everywhere in 2 to 3 weeks. But they had no problem doing that. There's people that have no problem not worrying about, I got to drive to the store just so I'm going to spend $125 on this figure that I really want. I can't really knock that. If somebody's willing to pay that, more power to you. But like, I like to pay retail. I'll drive around for a couple of weeks until I find it.
Yeah, I'm the same way too. I remember they had the Slim Jim Macho Man.
Yep.
And they said it was limited. And then people were buying it up, and a whole bunch of scalpers had it. I remember I missed out on this, and like the amount of money that people were like throwing at me to say like, hey, if I can sell it to you for 100, 150, and I was just like, nah, I'm not gonna pay that price. As much as I really want it, I was like, I'll wait. And then sure enough, like Figure Fate, they came out with a whole new release, and I jumped on it right away, and I paid the retail price for it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, but the prices sometimes that you see on eBay or even in figure groups, is just insane.
It is. But like I said, like if someone's willing to pay it, it's hard for me to knock it. Like I love that Macho Man figure, but I definitely couldn't have brought myself to pay what people were asking when it came out. Like there's been plenty of times where there's figures I wanted and I missed the drop, like the special drop. Micro Brawlers by Pro Wrestling Tees, that's an insane market that I can't even comprehend. Like I feel like 75% of the people that buy them on the website are people that are going to resell. And it sucks. It kind of like, puts a dapper on the community, but like it's just part of the game, I guess. Like I would love to be able to get every figure that I want, you know what I mean? Easily. But it's just never worked out that way, like for AEW, dude, I can't tell you how many cases I've opened right off a pallet. Like I've been like lucky finding all these cases. I've never once found a chase or a rare figure, never once. But there's people that go to the store, 3 different stores in one day, and they're pulling 3 Moxleys. And I'm like, I
don't get that either. Like for me, like I'm out here in New York and you're in Jersey, right?
Yep.
So I've driven to Jersey, and I'll say, you know what, today I'm just gonna stay in Jersey and I'm gonna go to Walmart, and I'm gonna just shop around different Walmarts to see what I can find. And I never once saw an AEW figure. So when you say you opened the cases of it, I'm like, well, I guess you took them all because I didn't see them.
Nah,
So
man,
like for me, I was
I
really
cause
lucky enough to like to have friends who got the figures from me.
yeah.
You know, so I mean, as far as finding a chase, I mean, that's like whoever finds it because I'm not gonna ask for it. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I've found multiple cases, but I've pre-ordered every set online as well. So
Hmm.
when I go to stores looking for AEW figures and I track them, I'm literally only looking for a chase or a rare because like I want that. I'm a mint on card collector, so it drives me crazy that these figures are numbered,
Hmm.
and I have 3 series and I have spaces in all of the series. Like it'll go one through 6, and then there's the
The space
next
for the
the next
chase.
set starts at 10. It's like it drives me crazy. Like that I but I want them, but I can't
Hmm.
spend that money. And I'm hoping one day I find them, but I don't know anybody personally who has found a Chase in Jersey. Like I know a lot of people in the state all over, and I haven't heard one person who's opened a case and actually found one.
Yeah, me either.
So, but then like Texas has tons.
Uh-huh.
Cali has tons. Florida, I've seen a bunch. North Carolina, I've seen a bunch. It's weird. Like it's got to be some kind of uh, distribution code or something. Like I don't think that Jazzwares is like, oh, North Carolina is getting all of these, and I think
Right.
it's just the way it's working out. Like the order that they're being shipped out. Like I don't think they're being partial to states. It's just weird that I haven't heard of any in Jersey yet.
Oh my God. All right. So I'm gonna end it with this. I normally end with one simple question. It's a figure question for you. So if Mattel calls you today and tells you that you can make any figure you want with accessories, who would it be and what would it come with?
Well, that's easy because it's gonna be 2 figures, but I consider it, a package deal. Something I've been waiting for. I'm a big Attitude Era guy. Okay, and I'm very vocal. I don't think Mattel makes enough Attitude Era. I don't think they do. We get Rock, we get Austin, we
Hmm.
get the we
The
get the heavy
typical
hitters.
guys.
But I want those mid carders. You know what I mean? I want some tag teams. I'm a big headbangers fan as a kid. I want elite headbangers, and um, I would think it would be cool if they both came with like two um two shirts, two
Hmm.
like cloth good shirts, or even like the rubber shirts, or maybe 2 skirts that you could like interchange on them.
Right.
But it's amazing to me because a couple years ago, the Headbangers they did like a couple stints on SmackDown.
Yeah, I
Like
think it was 2016 or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
like couple one-off matches on SmackDown. Then they were in like that tag team tournament. I think they didn't make
Hmm.
it past the first round, but I was like, oh my God, like there's no way we're not getting Headbanger Elites. And it's all these years later, we still don't got Headbanger Elites. Like I want those figures. And those figures, I think personally, are like very toyetic to the point that even if you're not a fan of wrestling, you don't know what they are. Like a kid would see that and be like, "Oh, this is cool." Like
Hmm.
they got piercings, they got face paint, they got skirts. It's such a toyetic figure that I think it's a safe bet for them. Um, I am dying to get some Headbanger Elites.
Well, hopefully, speak it into existence, and it will definitely will come up.
Absolutely,
So,
man.
so
But wait,
anybody
what's
that's gonna
yours?
want
What's yours?
mine's, I probably would say the '96 Royal Rumble Jeff Jarrett.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's another one. How come we haven't gotten a Jeff?
I don't know, and he's a part of the WWE committee.
I know. I know that they say like, oh, the contracts are different, but it's like once you're part of the company, you should be able to sign them then. Like,
Yeah,
but they have Jeff Jarrett merchandise too. I don't understand the whole what
like they
changed in
have the shirts. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know whether or not like what's going on as far as like figure wise.
yeah.
But hopefully we'll get that. So
That's a great
okay.
figure, man. That would be a
So,
great figure.
so if anybody wanted to reach out to you, like plug in your socials where people can find you.
Yeah. So on Instagram at figheel and at unreleased wrestling figs. We're also on YouTube. Like I'm really trying to build this YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/figheel. Do a lot of figure hunts. I do room tours showing off my collection. I have a whole series of unreleased videos on there where I talk about unreleased pieces. And I put together like whole compilations of every LJN unreleased figure, or every unreleased Hasbro figure. I love the YouTube channel, and that's a good place to come in contact with me because I'm constantly answering the comments. but also on Instagram, like I said, at figheel. So yeah, hit me up.
All right, that's great, man. Thank you so much for taking the time out to let us know what prototypes are.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate
All
it.
right.